This is dynamite. This is dynamite. But beyond this, because I can see people refusing to move with the time, beyond this, the school as we know it is going to disappear. The school as we know it. And in any case, the school as we know it is not even a very old thing and known to many people. The school as we know it has not been around, I think, for more than 300 years. It is going to be a thing of the past. The school includes the university as we know it today. But more critical, like I said earlier, knowledge as we currently have it and get it to our children and they consume it at the workplace is going to be transformed greatly. So that the traditional knowledge that is evident through certification is going to be something that nobody will look at. And I've given examples of many places in the world where people are not bothered so much about how. So it's now moving to the mode of learning. And this open university is going to be a game changer. And it will affect all universities. So those universities that think they will stick to the old ways of doing things without innovating around this idea, they will find themselves without students.
But we can also interrogate maybe a case in point of University of Nairobi and other universities.
Yes.
And when COVID really happened.
Yes, we moved to online
learning. We had a lot of professors and lecturers there really struggling to actually move to the online. Even some of them had to resign because they could not fathom how a university will be.
We are confusing technical challenges with the idea. The idea of learning using through different modes is here to stay. The problem is, when you tell Kenyan children to learn online, are you aware of the realities on the ground? You have the physical gadgets.
Yes.
Are you on the grid in terms of electricity? Those are challenges that we must mitigate.
But that's where we're headed with the tablets.
Dibal, what I wanted to again shed a little bit more light about the issue. On COVID times, there was no online learning per se, but there was blended, there was virtual learning. Yes. Now, virtual learning is not online learning. And the reason is, virtual simply means that you're using Zoom, you're using Teams, just like we do virtual courts, to access your students, access the parties to a case, and to transact the issue. Now, online learning as Open University is going to go, and indeed any other university that conducts online learning, it is really what Brian was saying earlier. He actually wakes up a little later. So as he started speaking later is when I realized now he was making sense.
When he talks about open, he's always been buffering.
Now he's getting
finally downloaded.
But the point he was making earlier is that it's really learner-centered. It's collaborative learning. It is platform-based. Connectivity is important. Electricity is important, and that the role of a teacher, of an instructor, who is not a teacher, an instructor, is simply to watch, to read, to guide the conversations. But learners are learning on their own, but they are also collaborating. So that I will tell you, look at this material. You look at that material, and I ask you to critique or to comment on it, and I give you guidelines. You comment on it, then other people also in that class comment on what you have said by them bringing in new ideas. But before they comment on yours, they will also have done an independent review of it. So there's a lot of learning. But then again, you are not confined to what you are reading. You now are free to bring in other material. For example, I've asked you a question about constitutional law, and I've given you maybe a Kenyan case. You are free now to bring in India, bring in South Africa, bring in other jurisdictions like the US and so on. So then that way you're expanding that learning, but you are doing so collaboratively together with the other students and so on. So that what we are struggling with, and I know that even from where we are sitting, the Senate the other day said no, we're either on physical or we are online, not virtual, because virtual is a very different space. And the MNQ is now saying that if you are going to do anything online or anything, then give us a curriculum. Make sure that you design something that is fairly clear, fairly elaborate, which they want to approve. So it's not just anything goes. Of course, the other challenge we've been having is that students will tell you, oh, I have connectivity problem and the exam is going on. They'll go off, they'll go and they'll load up something. Yeah. So it's a very difficult one. Having said that, there are very serious online programs. Park University, for example, runs almost its postgraduate programs online. Almost all of them. Of course, they have some physical ones, but almost. Universities like Regent University in the US and others, Trinity, Western, they run very serious online programs with Moodle.
Even the Ivy Leagues, I saw Yale as well.
Blackboard, there are facilities that are there. It's just that now we have a challenge with those facilities in our context. But otherwise, online is real.
Right. Even as we're winding up on it, why then is the cost of, if it's an open university, why is the cost, as people say, it's remaining the same? Say for this, I've seen what the MPs are saying, the cost will dramatically reduced. We have institutions who are still maybe also online and they've not really paid down on the cost. You still pay the same as a person who's coming in person to learn.
Those are the challenges.
So what is the dynamics? Because you don't use any facility from the campus. You're not, the cleaner is not there to clean, the data that you've left. So how then do you explain that the cost still remains for the person who's coming in person and the person who's taking it virtually?
Those are the challenges.
Those are the challenges.
Those are the challenges, administrative, technical. The challenges are many. And he mentioned something. I saw when we started online teaching during Corona. You see, all principles of pedagogy or teaching were not considered. When you stand before human beings to teach them, it's not the words alone. The delivery is benefiting from eye contact, facial expressions, gestures. All those go towards delivery. The passion in the teacher helps the learner. That's why mathematics is a subject where people perform very poorly. Because most of the teachers don't have the passion. They just draw things on the board and students begin to sleep in class. When now you move from the classroom and teach somebody on a phone, like I do, minus all those other benefits of face-to-face communication, and you call it teaching, that's not teaching. That's what you were saying. When it becomes online, you will have to design the material, the curriculum. For example, a textbook is different from online material. When you write study materials for students who will be online, you write the material as if the teacher is talking to them, which will be very different from a textbook. So all these pedagogical considerations are some of the challenges we are talking about. And the universities, of course, everybody takes advantage of situations. So if the university can save a little money by having a group home for a year, as the purporters they learn through the phone, they will save a little money.
A lot of money.
And that's where now regulation comes in. But regulation will not come in before we are open about things, before we are honest about certain things, before we adopt things, without resistance. We say, okay, we will not resist online. We are going to have hybrid. But surely, is it not being unfair to the learner who you teach from a phone and charge him as if they are on campus?
Yeah.
Those are some of
that's a moral question.
Yeah. Maybe consideration.
What do you think?
When I listen to Prof, and he's one of the dons that I've seen, they've really embraced technology. I see he has an online thing that he does.
Yes.
Unlike many dons.
It's YouTube.
He has a YouTube channel. So clearly he has embraced technology. The reason why universities are struggling is because the cost of running universities and the satellite campuses that they have created is extremely expensive. You find a university, they sat down, Akina Prof, and said, we have to tap into this new market that has come in.
So they
go to Kisii City Center and they get a building there. It is extremely
on top of a bar.
On top. Okay.
There was one in a near bus station in Eldoret.
And in Kisii, there is a problem with the land. So that particular university that is on top of that particular thing,
yes.
it's quite expensive in terms of rent and other utilities. So you end up having extremely expensive recurrent expenditure, and the people you're hoping to tap into are not enough to help you run that particular idea. Virtually all universities, virtually all, whether private or otherwise, they are all
struggling financially.
Yes. Universities like Catholic University, if it is not the land that they had, they would be in deep trouble. So the idea of open universities, I think I know it will remove a lot of control from the so-called lecturers. Let us give it, it's a new idea. We will definitely look at it. As we proceed, we will be able to panel beat it. But it is the future. You cannot run away from it.
The university has already been chartered.
Yes.
It's actually outrunning.
Yeah, it's been chartered.
So I want to urge all universities, including Herman Manyora's university, they have no choice. You are saying that they were in a meeting and they said, we have to revert to first.
I told them you are joking.
Now he's calling you
I want to give them free advice. That is the future. And if we continue running universities the way we are running them, believe you me, you cannot. You cannot. I read a report that was done last year. All universities are in financial problems. Literal financial problems. I don't know about Martin's University. I'm looking at him.
No. It's universities, you've said it. They have challenges because then most universities in this country rely on tuition, rely on numbers of students, and also rely on number of courses. Public universities, including Herman's University, it's technically broke. In fact, if it was a private university, it would have closed. It's in the red.
We get salaries, but we are not that broke.
You get salaries and
I've never missed my salary.
From Exchequer. NHIF
from Exchequer. No, the University of Nairobi generates funds. It is the only university in this country, among public universities, that can put a few billions on the table.
True, but what is this level of indebtedness?
Yes.
Of course, what is the nature of its indebtedness? It's not commercial, it is more of...
Listen,
even your statutory obligations as well.
Obligations are not paid, cooperative money deduction not paid, pay as you earn deduction not paid. I mean,
it's not as bad as
you need to be worried about your pension as well.
No. Our pension is safe.
Now we're getting to defend this.
My boss could be watching.
I can assure you, the university can close, but the pension will be there.
So what you're saying, that, Brian, is very real. That we must re-engineer and think through how we are providing. And that's why this thing, as you're saying, open university becomes key. That you must bring down costs.
There is something else, Martin, which university is like mine, if you call it mine, must know. There is provision in this country for transfer. Really, universities are just being unnecessarily mean on it. But there is the provision that if you are Daystar, you should be allowed to move to Catholic with your credits.
Yeah.
You should be allowed to move, in fact, to come to Makerere University, and so on and so forth. When these things are implemented, people will go to those open universities, get credit, and they come for the name. And at that point, you will have no control. So they get credits in those not so fancy universities. And then in the 4th year, they move to University of Nairobi. And you have no control. You cannot say no. And they live there with your certificate.
And that has been a problem.
Those are the things I'm telling my colleagues at the university. Let's be awake to. So as people move into open universities and they can get degrees faster and what have you, with, that's why it is open like they said. Let us keep a window open. You see that window of what we are calling online, whether it's online or not. Let's keep that window open. Let's keep perfecting the delivery through online. So that when somebody thinks they are going to choose that open university over University of Nairobi, they also figure, I wanted this University of Nairobi name. But we also tell him, you know what? You'll not be required to come here for all the courses. Some of the courses you'll do from your comfort of your office and your house. Oh, yes. Like how many? So, okay. Out of 40 units, maybe 25 will be online. You look at it against the name of the University of Nairobi vis-a-vis the other one, which is fully online, but whose paper you may doubt. You may be hiding when you talk about a degree. Here, University of Nairobi, because they have some provision for that online. That's what I've been telling my colleagues, and that's my advice to most public universities. Be open.
Be open.
You don't need to turn yourself into an open university because you'll not compete with these private universities. Neither is it really necessary, but keep that window open.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So what really happens, finally, I think this is a very interesting debate that has refused to go. What really happens then if we hack back to people who had moved, or maybe they were ahead of their time with the open university, and then they were denied to run for office because this was not a recognized or a chartered. No, I'm just asking. Like Margaret Wanjiru, she said, this is a degree that I acquired online.
Let me tell you,
she was castigated by.
London began offering law degrees
a long time ago.
My friend, before you were born, correspondence.
That's what I'm asking.
Long before you were born.
We know when you were born. The point you're making is not about online. It's about recognition.
Yes.
Is it a recognized university? Yeah. Is it a chartered university where it is? And do we have a reciprocal?
Can Q confirm that is a university?
That's the point. So that if you go today to Maharashtra or whatever, just stand, whatever you want to do, stand, and you get a degree. When you come back, we have no problem. We produce it, and then we'll ask Q or we'll ask the qualifications authority to check the qualification and to check whether that university that you claim you have come from is an acknowledged and accredited university universally and with Kenya. So Kenya recognizes certain universities. It's that's important. So, and then, the thing is, Dibala, and I think now even the courts have said that it's an unconstitutional requirement to demand that certain offices be occupied only by people who hold certain degrees. Now we've left it free for all. I am one of those guys who thinks that this thing about education requirement is an oxymoron. It is not necessary because this is an elective process. If people want to elect an illiterate, that is their choice. Why do you want to condemn them to give you a fellow because they have a degree when they don't like the fellow?
You in America have elected a cowboy.
Yeah.
No, but in the last election, there was a very popular candidate who ran for governor. When the party called him for a meeting, Dibal, he was asked, the papers that he brought forth were from a university that purely spoke Spanish. So he was told, can you greet us in Spanish? He couldn't speak Spanish. So how did you get it? And then when they Googled the university, it was a corn plantation.
So the guy was a corn.
So the guy, and he was very popular. Yeah. This particular
I like
guy,
the play on words.
it was a corn plantation and the guy was a corn. So they Googled where the university was. It was a maize plantation. And that particular university that was was claiming he went to school, was purely teaching in Spanish. So he was asked, me amo
The guy doesn't know Spanish.
The guy that was not uttering a single word in Spanish.
Even Brian doesn't know Spanish.
But you see, even Brian.
That's the problem of reliance on degrees. When out of the, I don't know, 15 or 16 America, how many have we had? More than half never had college education. American presidents, not president of some poor, dirty third world country, of the United States of America. Almost half, if not more, never had what Americans prefer to call college education.
Indeed.
Yeah.
All right, let me just wind up by, even the wisest man, King Solomon, he once said, but my child, let me give you some further advice. Be careful, for writing books is endless. And much study wears you out. So much study as well will wear you out, will wear your soul.
Now, every effort I've been making to make sure Mheshimiwa graduates is surely everybody now brings
the wisest man has said, take respite in that. Too much of it will wear your soul.
That it will wear you out only if you work hard. Don't worry, so work hard.
But still, coming back now to the subject matter that we were actually discussing, academia and technology, and where now we have the president urging multinational companies to consider the issue raised by local leaders on behalf of the residents of Kericho who have been laid off due to technology. They still want to hang on to tea picking, and technology is here.
Well, I think it's very interesting. One needs to understand that tea that we produce as a country is the best in the world. It's the best in the world to the extent that a lot of our tea is not used directly. It is used to blend other teas because they are of lower quality. So I know perhaps the president had local consideration in terms of his pronouncement, but we also need to look at what are we doing to our tea industry. We've been fetching very good prices because of the quality of tea that we produce and the stage of preparedness. Now, machines coming does not really improve the quality. It may lower the quality because the machine is not technically equipped, because usually when I was in the ministry...
This is artificial intelligent machine.
Well, I don't know. I think we've not
picking the needle on the two leaves.
Yeah, the bud and the two leaves.
Yes.
That's a standard that we've adopted as a country. The second issue is also when you are bringing change management, you must also prepare people for that change. I do expect and I do hope the multinationals are prepared people for change, and in part of preparation, you give them alternative engagement, because some of the tea pickers can be engaged in other aspects, so that you just don't throw people out of job employment and you leave them to the vagaries of poverty as a country. So I think the president had some kind of to now work on a tightrope. Is dealing with the local dynamism that is very violent in Kericho unless it is taken care of, and also the consideration that I've just stated. We need these multinationals to say how are they going to engage these people gainfully, because yes, your employees are not your workers, but to the extent they are part of the investment that you need to have in the tea industry. I do expect that could have been the wisdom of the president in saying, let us consider some of the cries from the local people. I remember, I think 2 months ago, the road was blocked, and the governor, I think in the East campaign, that was one of his rallying calls. But now the governor needs to engage with the people of the tea industry and come with an answer instead of just throwing people away from the tea farms. Yep.
Right, and Martin Olo, you want to comment on that as well?
Yeah.
Is it a political expediency? looking for the next elections? Because there's a whole block of voters as well that you want to...
Dibal, we have been
appease.
Independent since 1963-64. 60 years plus we have been independent. I have never seen anybody whose family ever got better because they were tea pickers. So
in Nandi,
in Nandi, in Kericho, or even Central Province.
In Congo.
Yeah, or in Congo. Now, to even defend tea picking in a manner in which we are talking is to submit that we have not done a thing to improve our welfare since the colonial times. Because that's what we were doing in the colonial times. Tea picking, using women, using children.
Actually, I was taught in agriculture, women are best because of their fingers.
Yeah, but the point is, have we been paying them well, or have we just been exploiting them? So the tea industry has human rights issues to respond to. To bring a machine could be an issue of efficiency, could be an issue of using technology to make profits. But to argue against the machine because you want to defend the right of tea picking is a political statement that does not necessarily care about the welfare of those people you're talking about. Because agriculture in this country, and we have a man who has sat at the helm of agriculture, I have never been near the helm of it. Agriculture in this country does not make money for farmers in a manner in which it should. And partly is because of this colonial legacy that we carried through. Whether you're talking about coffee, that's why sometimes coffee farmers have to go on strike, they uproot it before government can meet with them. Issues of debt, the KPCU and others, KTDA and the other players in the tea industry make more money than a farmer does, and so on. The potential in which we could get things done in the tea industry goes higher, or goes, is farther than just this business about, let our people pick tea and so on. So for me, we are still talking about poverty, impoverishment, casual labor. I would have thought that the president was saying, or should be saying, I promised jobs. Now is the time for me to look at the tea industry and see how we can do value addition in the area and see how better jobs can be generated. But to defend tea picking, rudimentary as it is, and impoverishing as it is,
and it's begging the multinationals. There's a bigger issue here, Deba. When I had the president, first of all, before the president, there was the deputy president. And I commented on it on my YouTube channel. And I said, look here, I remember learning in school. Tea was introduced to Kenya in 1924. You remember that? And it was strictly for white farmers. Africans were not allowed to grow tea. So our work was to pick the tea that was grown by white people. If you look at the history of the tea industry in this country, when I'm going home and I'm passing Kericho, in tea plantation, the road crosses the tea plantations. It is raining and the poor Africans are plucking tea. You have your small tea plantation at home. You are working on it. But the price of that tea is being determined in London. The same colonial setup he's talking about. That is what the president should be addressing. How come we have renewed leases for these multinationals? No country will do that in the 21st century. They will not. If these multinationals were in other foreign country other than their own, nobody will renew those leases. Del Monte, Sujiwat. It is time we partner with those people, at the very least, to exploit that which is ours, like tea. Now, that takes me to the next step of AI, that you will not stand in the way of AI. Neither will you stand in the way of technology. But it is also a misconception that AI or technology will take away jobs. No. In fact, it will create more jobs. And that's what he's talking about. What the president ought to have been talking about is this idea of us exporting raw materials from Kenya will come to an end. And we begin with tea here today. That if you think machines are doing a good job, welcome, let them pick. But we are going to process the tea here and sell it as a finished product. And for every one job you currently have in the tea sector, you will have 20 new jobs that are now jobs, like he's saying, paying jobs, not those slave wage jobs. That is what the government is supposed to be thinking about. That's my Minister of Agriculture in the 21st century.
And you can't
That's the thinking we need in this country.
And when we're talking about the value addition as well, we are not just considering the product itself, because in the value addition, it is also the workforce.
Yes.
Right? That if the president is actually navel-gazing on the value addition, he's been very vocal on it internationally, that we don't need to just take it as a raw product. It needs to be value added here. We sell it as an ultimate
when
product.
you go to London, you find Kenya coffee shop, tea shops where you can enter and take Kenyan tea.
Yes, but don't go there and find our tea packaged in the UK, say English tea, at the UK, made in the UK. Coffee made
I was taking my dawa in some hotel somewhere. This dawa that has come, this Mkorogo. So the honey I refused. Made in the US, sourced from Australia. I said to you. So sourced from Kenya, but made in London. We want, when you go to, is it Beijing? We call it Peking when I was in school. You find shops, Kenyan shops, selling Kenyan tea. What wanapiga line kununua chai ya Kenya, made from Kericho, exported to Beijing, and Kenyans like Weke are there operating serious businesses, a chain of shops selling Kenyan tea. That is the thinking of the 21st century.
Actually,
that is what will create jobs in this country.
Prof,
Yes.
I have walked into Starbucks,
Yes.
which is one of the biggest outlets of coffee shops
Yes.
in America. And there is common coffee, then there is Kenyan coffee.
Correct.
Now, the Kenyan coffee is more expensive
Correct.
than the normal coffee. You know why? Because we produce better tea, we produce better coffee.
Used for blending.
And you see, when you hear Professor being articulate on the matters of tea and coffee, but when you bring him to now talk about sugar, he will start saying, bringing other issues.
My position.
We'll come to the sugar issue. Let's talk about sugar. No, we'll come to the sugar issue.
When you want the professor to be articulate, tell him anything away from his village. Then he will become very articulate.
You want villagers to beat you?
He will tell you. No. It is the same thing that Kirwa.
That guy wants the villagers to beat me.
It is the same thing that Kirwa is talking about. Let us be genuine. When we produce tea locally, it is supposed to compete internationally. The cost of production of tea should be reduced so that we can compete internationally. And this is not just about tea. It is not just about coffee. It is about sugar. Sugarcane in this country. There are no two ways about it. We have said this for so long. Every time we have to play to the gallery that, multinationals reconsider, these agrarian ways of producing our export cash crops. We are done. Let us sit down and embrace technology. And as the professor says, whether it is in tea, whether in sugar cane, whether in coffee, we need to adopt technology. There are no two ways about it.
Indeed.
The same way we are saying that universities have to adopt Open University is the same way we are saying there are no two ways about it. And once you embrace technology, we will think of other ways of creating employment. And I can tell you for a fact, the problem we have is that whatever small that we know, this is where I get my money. This is where I wake up in the morning and get some small monies that have not been able to help your family for many years, as Martin would say it. Let us be serious as a country. It is very sad that a president in the 21st century is urging multinationals
to employ casuals.
To keep casuals, yet you have capacity to ensure that we produce more and hire more people.
Honorable Kiro had a soft spot for the farmers.
I think...
but he needs to tell us as well, even from his docket as agricultural minister.
Emeritus now.
Yeah, and...
no, as far as we're concerned, you're still the minister.
Yeah, you will still answer questions regarding this.
Yes, I do.
Yes, tea and sugar as well.
I think there is a lot of misconception about the trade dynamics in the world. I know as well as you do, only 7% of what is accrued from coffee gets back to the original farmer. 11% of what is accrued on tea goes back to the original farmer.
11%?
11% for tea, 7% for coffee, unless the dynamics have changed since I left the ministry. Well, what is the reason? There is a lot of international cartels that deal with this kind of situation. And those international cartels come back all the way to the country, to the extent that somebody leaves Meru as a coffee farmer. Very good, he's been elected to coffee board because he's a very good farmer. 3 years down the road, he's no longer a coffee farmer.
He's a billionaire.
He's a billionaire, and the farm is not doing as well as it was doing when he was first elected. The reason is that these cartels, they control the industry. What I know in the mind of the president, he was not telling them that those people should be condemned perpetually as tea pickers, but can you give them alternative engagement in terms of employment? And if you are doing value addition, can you improve the quality of the people in the tea picking industry? The third issue, which I think is very important, is it is not true that tea picking has condemned the people of Kericho to poverty. Most of the professors are children of tea farmers, and they were able to take them to school because of tea picking. So it cannot be said that it's a doom, but what we can do is to see how do we improve the chain so that majority of these tea pickers are part of the chain of the tea picking of the industry. How can we make them fully incorporated into the benefit of the industry? In some countries like Japan, the longer you work for an industry, the higher are your shares in that particular industry. Can we have the same as part of corporate social responsibility?
Indeed.
For the tea industry to say tea pickers, workers working in the tea industry are part and parcel of the ownership, so that instead of going the drastic way of Herman Manyora, that multinationals, the leases should be ended, we say, how do you allow the locals to own the industry without necessarily ceding away the land?
I'll respond.
Can you allow me just to take a short break, because my time is up right now, and we're due for a station break. When we circle back, we look at this particular issue, pertinent as well, and it's just not really navigating on the tea sector. We know all this threat of technology will affect you and me somehow, and we need to be prepared for it as a country. What does it portend in terms of job creation and losing of jobs as well? And even when we look at that, broadly speaking as well, with the sugar sector, why is the country still navel-gazing on sugar, which is supposed to be actually the byproduct of canes, and actually the least of it? We import sugar because other countries are selling it as the end product. Can we consider other products in between as a country that will try and upscale and also improve the scalability, so to speak, of the sugar industry, instead of just focusing on sugar itself? We'll take a short break. We'll circle back with more. You're watching Uongozi Today.